Oh, I forgot to take that off. Hello everyone. I wish I could start all over again, but this is live, so we cannot do that. um, well, I am excited for today's show. We have somebody very, very special today, and we're going to talk about the market, the 2022 market, this crazy market that went down all of a sudden, then went up, and then everybody wanted to buy everything off the shelf, and now the rates have gone up because there's so many changes that we are going through. And we're going to invite Fernando Coates. I'm gonna tell him to say it because I'm not the best at pronouncing his name, but I know his last name is I don't even know where it's from, but I'm gonna tell him to pronounce it. He's an attorney for over 30 years, focusing on New York City, and we want to know what's going on from attorneys because they're right there. They're in front of the contracts. They're seeing contracts coming in and out. They see the market. They know what's going on. So I want to bring them without further ado. Hello. How are you?
I'm all right. Nice to see you, Shomada.
Nice to see you. You look wonderful.
Thank you. So do you.
Thank you. Um, so you've been doing this career for 30 years.
Yes, I've had my own practice since 1990, and my office is here in Midtown Manhattan, where I've been since then practicing mainly commercial and residential real estate law.
Great. That's great. So you've seen everything pretty much. You focus in the city. Do you do a little bit of Queens outside the
Yeah,
borough?
what I would say, I do mainly New York City, but I've done closings and real estate work from the Hamptons all the way up to the Catskills. Any further north doesn't really make much sense because it's not cost effective for the client. And if you can believe it, New York being New York and the way the rest of this country is, every jurisdiction is different, even within a state. So north of Catskill, they start using different contracts and different customs. You go to New Jersey, Northern Jersey is different from Southern Jersey. Even though I'm not a New Jersey lawyer, I know New York City has so many co-ops, so a lawyer outside of New York City may not be as familiar with that. Which is why I find real estate so fascinating, but it makes it complicated.
Yeah, and you do deal with a big deal of co-ops because there's a lot of co-ops in the city. How is that? I
Now
know
I live in a co-op, and I was on the board of directors of my co-op for 18 years. So that gave me a wealth of experience, which I applied to my deals in co-ops, which they're a completely different animal. They exist in another realm. They have different requirements and ways of handling things and so forth. And they can be quite tricky because, for example, lenders tend to have higher interest rates for co-ops.
Mm,
I think you would know that, Shomada. And
right.
even though condos are supposed to be more freely alienated, that's what we say among lawyers. They're going more towards their board of managers to asking more requirements, more complicated applications, and so forth.
Oh yes, and they want to know they get really down to the financials of the co-op of the corporation and even the coverage. Like as down as reading the whole binder of coverage on the building.
Well,
So yeah, they get very very detailed on
Well,
that.
that's part of my due diligence I do for any real estate closing, depending on the type of property. Because as I said, I do all kinds: single family residences, co-op condos, brownstones, townhouses. I'm sorry, industrial warehouse buildings. So for a co-op, it's a unique kind of due diligence because I'm looking at financial statements, not as a CPA, but for example, what the reserve fund has. That's
Mhm.
important. I send a co-op questionnaire, which I do the same for a condo, and I read the board minutes if they let me do it, the same I do for a condo, because you get a better idea what's going on, not just with the specific apartment, but maybe the neighbors of the apartment, in the building itself, what projects or litigation they have, and so forth.
Nice. Wow, you're definitely a wealth of information for sure. And he's such a good. I know Fernando for like over a little over a year now, right?
Probably close to 2 years.
Yeah. So and he's a very very kind person, big heart. He was very good with the community, and he's not pretentious at all. If you have questions, call him. He's so down to earth, very nice human being. And so big question 2022. what is going on in this crazy market now? The rates went up, they're shooting up, they're not stopping, they're like a rocket right now. And what's that? What do you foresee that as an implication in the market right now?
I can speak more knowledge about New York City, and even though I can speak on New York City, there are different what they call in weather microclimates, micro markets. Every market is different.
Hmm.
Co-op versus condo versus brownstones and townstones versus commercial and so forth. For example,
Hmm.
during the pandemic, warehouses were big. People wanted to
Hmm.
stock up, especially the companies like Amazon were buying up, Best Buy, and
Oh
so
yeah.
forth. Property like that, and it continues. But that's one market that really was hot, so to speak, at the time of the pandemic. Or you have co-ops which tend to be more because New York City has so many co-ops, they tend to stabilize the market. So New York City doesn't always go down as abruptly. The prices will go down occasionally, or when
Hmm.
the Great Recession we had 2008 or 9. But because there are over a million co-ops, and it's much harder to buy and sell a co-op, they tend to add a stabilizing effect. So that market's different. Plus, or in addition, it's not a market for a pied-à-terre or for investment because most co-ops require a primary residence. You know that as well. Uh,
Yes.
and they won't generally allow corporations to own because I have a lot of foreign clients, and I always tell them, do not ever buy any asset in the United States of America in your own name because if that not, and I'm talking about non-resident aliens, when I mean foreigners, they don't live
Mhm.
here, they don't work here. If they die owning that, then their estate taxes will be
Oh yes.
40 to 50% of the data death market value, which is different from you and me, Xiomara, as residents or citizens, because we get a huge discount. Right now, currently, federal is 11 million, I believe, and about almost 6 million for New York State exemption.
So if you are interested in getting your act together and buying that house, and you're not documented, let's say you're not a U.S. citizen, it's best to set yourself up. Call Fernando's, get a an idea of what you need before you go and put money in a contract, because that's the worst thing. I've seen that happen where we as foreigners, we work really hard, we save a lot of money, and then all of a sudden we put it into a contract. It may not be favorable, and then if you're not able to meet the terms, you could lose your money. So you have to be
Absolutely.
very, very careful with that. So you want to get some information before you take the step from somebody who's going to care about you for sure. Now, how did the market during COVID? I know that the market it dropped about 30% in the city, but then now it's fully recovered.
Yes, and I was about to say that, but because I digressed, I apologize. Talking
It's
about co-ops and estate taxes, the
this.
market is hot for
Oh, great.
condominiums, for houses, for brownstones, for townhouses, for industrial commercial buildings. It is very hot. It almost flies off the shelf, to use a metaphor. When
Hmm.
things are listed, you're going to get people who are actually overbidding on the
Hmm.
price. And I get a lot of pressure, and I'm not complaining, from real estate brokers, especially when I'm trying to do my due diligence on whatever property is, and they're saying, Fernando, you got to do this right away. Come on, we're going to lose a deal. I understand that, but I'm not going to jeopardize the client. And
Of
it's a
course.
delicate balance because I'm not one of those lawyers, and not every lawyer is trying to ruin the deal. I know we have that reputation, unfortunately, sometimes deserved. I don't want to ruin the deal, but I want to protect my client, which goes back to why you should have a lawyer. Not me; it could be anyone. Just please have someone review those contracts and do their due diligence.
Yes, definitely. You want to have somebody that has plenty of experience. So you want to know, and this is something that we talked about in the past in other broadcasts, that you want to know how long that person has been practicing, and talk to them before you just go and just go to anyone. Even if it's somebody that's recommended, sometimes maybe the realtor is new and his attorney is also new, and you want to know that the person that you're, at least the attorney, has enough experience that's going to look out for you, because that's it. The contracts, that's it. That's what tells you black and white, what's going to happen. So you want to make sure this person knows what they're doing.
Yes.
And so I knew when the market dropped that it was going to pick. It's just a matter of time before it picked back up. Now it's hot. What's happening with this rise of the interest rates now? How's that affecting?
Well, I think the interest rates already been rising anyway since the end of last year because the lenders were anticipating that there would be a rate hike because, unfortunately, the inflation that refuses to go away.
Mm-hmm.
I think that inflation is going to continue. Unfortunately, it has a lot. I'm not want to get into political things. There are a lot of reasons for that, but it's made much worse
Mm-hmm.
because of the war in Ukraine, because that has a lot of reverberations and a lot of effects on what's going on in the economy here in our own country. It isn't
Yeah.
just the sanctions on Russia. There's a bounce back effect to some extent, and the oil and so forth. So anyway, the point is that the inflation is still up there. I think they raised it just a few days ago. The market rate, the Feds did that. That's going to. I don't think it'll necessarily tamp down on the market itself because the market itself is generated in such a way or self-generated that there are people constantly want to buy. Now, depends again where that market is. You have something like Manhattan, which is a very unique bubble. People call it the Vatican City State in the sense that it's its own world because there's only so much land in Manhattan. You can't spread
Mm-hmm.
out. I mean, they
Yes.
dream of putting a land bridge between Governor's Island, I heard, and Manhattan to make it a beautiful park. Well, good luck. I don't think that'll happen in the near future. So the point is that there's only so much. They've had a lot of construction. Now, before the pandemic, the market had softened a lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially in condos. That's the big thing in New York, aside from the co-ops, because single family residents are really in the outer boroughs for the most part. Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island, and of course Nassau and Suffolk and Westchester. The thing is that when you have a condo dominant market in a place like Manhattan where there is no land and there hasn't been that much construction because all the construction occurred well before the pandemic, and that's what led to the prices somewhat being reduced.
Mm-hmm.
The supply is not there, and they're just people who want to buy. And I think I mentioned it before we started the program today. There are a lot of foreigners starting to come back to New York.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the reason for that is because as things politically seem divisive in our own country and the issues we have, New York and all the United States appears to be almost as if it were an island of stability for those who want to invest or have something in this country.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Definitely. I agree with you. And so what do you foresee for the next rest of the year? I know that rates might still go up a little more, and we don't know how much more, but it's still overall and within the last 30 years all-time low. I don't
Yes.
know if I'm going to be saying that for too long, but it's still cheap to get money and to invest.
Oh,
uh,
I agree. I think I think the rates will go up. They'll inch
mhm,
up because of political instability outside the United States, because of war, unfortunately, because of inflation. But I don't think that's going to or dampen the market too much because people are buying again. Because a lot of people, except for certain markets like Long Island,
mhm,
meaning Nassau and Suffolk, Florida, and some other places, a lot of markets weren't that active. And now that they've come back because the pandemic has subsided to a great degree, not completely, but it's subsided. And a lot of people, and they say this in a lot of other contexts, not just real estate, were hoarding their money. They were keeping it. They were saving it,
mhm.
partly because they weren't able to spend it. So there's a pent up demand, and that demand will not be satisfied. And this housing stock won't be satisfied, and the interest rates won't be high enough to discourage the market itself. Will continue well through the end of this year, I believe.
Well, they're making more of more people. They're not making more land, so that we knew.
Yeah.
As far as a market correction, do you see any market correction? If the I believe if they keep rising as quick as they have been, a lot of people that qualified last year will not qualify this year. So that's in a sense, you have to restructure where you have to either bring in another person to the purchase, a
Right.
co-signer, where whether you got, let's say you got approved last year by yourself, maybe now you have to bring a co-signer. But let's just say, to the person who's looking to buy for the first time, should they continue to buy? Should they rent for a little bit? What would you suggest?
I would say to buy. And even though it'll be more expensive to buy, you also get the tax benefits of when you have a mortgage that's deductible, the interest that you pay. You don't have that with rent. And also over time, if you're able to maintain the payments, you build up equity.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's very important. A lot of people don't have. A lot of immigrants don't realize that, and they have to. What they don't know is, oh yeah, I'll put money in the bank, or I'll put it under my mattress, or something like that, or maybe whatever, a business. Those
Mm-hmm.
things aren't. And real estate's not the only asset that does it, but real estate's probably the easiest one to take advantage of. That you have something there, and when you pass away or you sell it or whatever, that has a basis of value, which is really good for the family if you're planning on the future.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and again, it's it's still low to buy, so it's still encourage. I would say I encourage people, if you're looking for a first time, you're looking for your that home, you should definitely consider it. Now, as far as the prices, what do you think? You think they're declining a little bit, correcting? You think they're still gonna
I think,
really? You
yeah, they're
think
gonna.
they're still gonna go up?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think they're gonna go up precipitously or too high, but they will go up slowly but
Yeah.
surely.
I don't
There's
think
demand out there. There
yeah,
really is.
yeah, there is a lot of demand for sure. So we'll see what this spring looks like as far as the aggressiveness of the buyers.
Right.
um you know, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. You've been through a lot of 30 years of experience. You've seen them up, down,
Yeah.
upside down. You've
Yeah.
seen all of it, so you definitely have your thumb on the pulse. And what words of encouragement you have for people that are looking to invest,
As opposed to buying a residence.
as opposed to buying? Let's say they already have their home, they have a little bit of equity, they're looking to invest. Should they invest in New York? Should they invest outside of New York? You know, there's a lot of there is very tricky with the New York not being landlord friendly. What would
Well,
you say in that sense?
yeah, what the New York is landlord friendly when it comes, especially to rent stabilized and rent control. Most properties that are purchased will not have tenants who are rent stabilized or rent controlled, so that'll be more in the favor of the investor. But I really believe, excuse me, that New York is a unique market. It really is. And as foreigners are coming back, and they are coming back because of the situation in their own countries, Latin America, Asia, they see something here that is well worth buying. So yes, I think it's an investment that's good in New York. Even when it goes down, you said 30%, it wasn't as bad as the rest of the country, especially during the Great Recession, as an example, or other times in the past. And I think people will always see this place that people will come here. Maybe, and this will affect a lot the market more in the longer term. They're not Midtown, and my office in Midtown. You don't see as many people as before. Well, guess what? They're going to change these buildings. They're going to rezone them from office buildings to partly either business, hotel, or a residence, which they did in Lower Manhattan because Wall Street changed dramatically over the last 30 years. I've
Hmm.
gone down there. If you've gone there, Shamira, there are
Yeah.
people living there. There are restaurants. I mean, there are gyms and so forth. There's still businesses, there's still the stock exchange. I think that'll happen to Midtown as well. So you'll have more opportunities to buy things, and you'll have more people who want to live here. Even though it's not the same as it was before the pandemic, you have all that money coming in from outside the country or other parts of the country. You have a pretty good investment. You really do.
Hmm. And you're having like a big turn of younger people coming back to fill up the offices and the positions, and they come and they group up and they get into a place, and so you see definitely see it filling up quick. Now the
Right.
families are the ones that were kind of leaving the Manhattan area. Maybe they want more backyard, and that's always been the issue. A family wants the backyard, especially with what just happened with the pandemic. So,
Right.
you know, you see that happening, and I think this was like a reset for New York City. Well, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this one. I think it was great. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, it's been scrolling down there. Fernando's address is right there. His phone number 212 986 1544. Or you could go to his website, www Gleason. How do you say your last name?
Koatz.
Koatz. Koatz. Where's that last name from?
It's a long story. I'll tell you later.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up actually. Um, so very approachable. You certainly should give him a call if you have any questions or you want a consultation. If you're looking to invest, very well diverse in residential and commercial. Any words for our audience?
That real estate is always a good, wise investment, whether it's for personal use or, as you said, Shomara, for investment. If you have a question, feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to answer those questions.
Thank you so much. And he also speaks Spanish. We're gonna do a Spanish one after this one.
Español, portugués y francés.
Mira para allá. Muy bien. So stay tuned if you want to get the Spanish version of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.